Pregame.com.
Wednesday, ESPN action, Big 12. We got a couple of the heavyweights of the Big 12 this year. Kansas at Baylor. Kansas is always a heavyweight in the Big 12, but this is new for Baylor. This is uncharted territory. I mean, they got good last year, and they continued it this year. Three-way tie at the top of the Big 12. Them, Baylor, and Missouri. And you know me, scheduling dynamics. Kansas is in a bad spot here. They played the other team, the three that I just mentioned on Saturday, in an absolute war in a game that Kansas had. It was theirs to win. In Missouri made the big comeback. And, how does that affect a team like Kansas off a big game like that on the road? You had them on the ropes, and you couldn't put the final nail in the coffin, and they come back and beat you.
Yeah, Kansas is a young team. They've already gone on the road and lost to Missouri. They lost to Iowa State, and they only beat Texas by 3 when Texas was really struggling early on. This game brings back bad memories because I had Baylor in the first matchup. They were getting +7, and I joked with Scott Spritzer on one of the videos because he also was on that team, and I couldn't believe that Kansas was laying 7 points. But that home court for Kansas, it's got to be one of the strongest. That and Duke is probably two of the strongest in college basketball. And when these teams go on the road, they just don't have that advantage. It's going to be interesting. You hate to say any game is a must-win game. This is a prove-it-to-everybody game for Baylor. If they lose at home to Kansas in this situation, they may just be an also-ran type of team. Talent-wise, Baylor has just as much talent as anybody in the country. The problem is they play undisciplined a lot of times. I mean, instead of making the correct pass, they try to do something fancy. And, you take a look at their turnovers. They make a lot of turnovers. If they played more of just a normal, get-the-job-done type of a veteran type of offense, they'd be a lot better team.
Well, you're serving me up a softball here for me to hit a home run because I'm not going to play the game. I'm making the play here, and I think you agree with me on this play. We're going to look at the total. For the game itself, we're projecting it. I have Baylor -2.5. You have them at -3. So we're projecting it to be a line of around -3 in this game. But I'm going to look at the total. And just what you talk about, that undisciplined style, and, sometimes they have stretches. And if I remember correctly, that first game, Baylor was undefeated going into the Kansas game. And that game, Kansas had spurts in that game where they just went like on a 4 or 5 minute run where everything they were putting up was going in. And Baylor had those undisciplined trips down the floor, a turnover that resulted in a fast break the other way, or once they had separation, because that ended up being an 18-point blowout, they had to start, chucking it up from 3, and you know what happens. You either make them or it's a long rebound and they're heading the other direction. I'm seeing a total reversal. And because that first game was such a high-scoring game, 92-74, and the over-under was only 139 in that game, Vegas is going to make a huge adjustment in the rematch based off of that first score. When you got a game go over by 20-some points, Vegas has to adjust the line in this one. And I think we're going to get value because of that. We're also going to get value because, as we said, it's on ESPN. We've talked about this over and over again. The games that are on ESPN, you can figure generally Vegas is going to add a point or two to the over-under just because they know they're going to have a national audience. There's people that are going to bet a game that really don't have an opinion, but because it's on TV, they got to have action on that game. And if you set, I don't want to call them squares, but John Q. Public, 100 of them in a room, more of them are going to say over than under just because they always want to still be live with their bet. That's going to give us more value. Now, for the handicapping side of it, because of that first game, Baylor knows what they did with the turnovers. They know the mistakes that they made because this is for first place. There's a three-way tie with these teams in the Big 12. It's going to be, I don't want to use the phrase like a playoff game, but this is a key game. If Baylor loses this game, they've got basically no shot at the Big 12 title because then they're going to have 2 losses to Kansas. So they're going to, if they come back and finish in a tie, they lose the tiebreaker with them. They need this game. They're going to play it focused, close to the vest, and I think they're going to take care of the ball better. What does that mean? Well, you're not going to be pushing the ball up the floor. You're not going to have those, undisciplined passes and that. You're going to be more deliberate. That's going to take clock. It's going to take more possessions. And if it's a close game, rather than an 18-point blowout, at the end of the game, you're going to have a more confined, controlled offense, not fouling and chucking up threes and making the score, blow up like it did in the first meeting. I think there's tremendous value in the under in this play.
Yeah, I can agree with you on the under here. And you take a look back at that first meeting, Kansas used 57% from the field, and they out-rebounded the Bears by 15. Yeah. That's not going to happen again. And Kansas, there's probably not a more dominant, maybe Connecticut, but a more dominant team down low than Kansas. Offensively and defensively, they're great under the basket. Their weakness is defending the three, which puts this, if you're going to play the side, it puts it in jeopardy because, as you pointed out, if Baylor's hitting the threes, Baylor could run away with this game. Baylor does not hit the threes, they run into trouble. And I think that's what you have to take a look at. And it makes it harder to project, which team is going to win, because it's like taking the Orlando Magic in an NBA game. If they're hitting the threes, they can compete with anybody. If they can't, we've seen some ugly games. And that's the problem you're going to have if you're looking to play the favorite here in Baylor in a revenge situation. I learned that lesson the first time they played. So I'm going to lay off the side, even though I think Baylor, it's a very important game for them. And Kansas really has not played that well on the road. But I think the under is probably the way to go here.
I've got it. I'm projecting that the game's going to be 136 points. So we're going under. Look at what the line comes out at. We're going to guess that it's probably going to come out 142, 143 with the total, which is going to give us a lot of room there. Me personally, as long as this total is 140 or higher, I'm going to be on the under in the game. So you can check pregamevideos.com. We'll have our show notes up, and you can ask us questions about the games, because that's one of the disadvantages of getting the videos up early. Unlike in football, we've got the lines out for the whole week and everything. So many things happen on game day. Not so much on the college because they're not generally playing a game before we are taping, but the NBA, you could have this season, you could have two games being played in between the time that we're doing videos. So you've got my free pick here. It's not my best bet of the week. We'll have that later in the week. But I'm giving you the free pick on the under. Brian agrees, so you got a double bubble there from the Rotund brothers of pregame.
You got my mind on a different matter when you said double bubble there.
Oh, okay.
Not even a comeback.
No, boy, I could. We'll leave that go. We'll be back. We're going to go to the NBA and see if Brian and I can stay out of trouble. Free pick once again is the under. Kansas Baylor for Wednesday. Back next, we're going to go NBA, Dallas at Denver.